They say history is written by the victors. That's optimistic. More often, it's hastily scrawled in the margins by two men arguing over who has the more impressive motorcade. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to what historians will surely call the Great Alaskan Staredown, a summit that promised a new chapter in global cooperation and instead delivered an international incident wrapped in a reality television season finale. This was not a battle of ideologies. It was a duel of vanities so profound, so comically fragile, that the ancient ice sheets of Anchorage were reportedly heard groaning with sympathetic dread. They chose Alaska, a land of stark, unforgiving beauty where nature's indifference to human ambition is the main attraction, a place that does not care about your approval ratings, your latest tweet, or the size of your nuclear arsenal. The perfect, neutral territory, which of course was an absolutely dreadful idea. Neutrality is anathema to men who believe the universe revolves around their every utterance. And if any two men fit that description, it's Donald J. Trump and Vladimir Putin. The venue was prepared in Anchorage, not some opulent wood-paneled hall steeped in history, but a utilitarian convention center more accustomed to hosting RV expos and regional dental hygienist seminars. The atmosphere was thin, frigid, and crackling with the specific kind of tension found in a waiting room when two rival CEOs are scheduled for the same appointment. First on the scene was the American delegation, announced not by sirens, but by the high-pitched whine of an electric motor pushed far beyond its intended purpose. Carving a path through the snow-dusted landscape was not an armored presidential limousine. It was a bespoke, Kevlar-lined golf cart, painted a triumphant shade of gold and featuring an oversized, flapping Trump campaign flag on its canopy. Behind the wheel, swaddled in an enormous crimson parka over his suit and tie, was the man himself, projecting less the gravitas of a global leader and more the air of a department store Santa who had just won a scratch-off lottery ticket. And then, nothing. An immense, palpable silence descended, the kind of quiet that feels heavy, Siberian. 18 minutes crawled by, then 32. Just as observers began to wonder if the Russian contingent had simply decided to go home, three identical black armored sedans slid to a stop on the icy pavement. There was no fanfare, no branding. Their doors opened with a single, unnerving, synchronized thud. From the center vehicle emerged Vladimir Putin. He was dressed in a simple, perfectly fitted black overcoat, seemingly oblivious to the sub-zero temperatures. He moved with the fluid, deliberate economy of an apex predator who never wastes a single motion. His gaze fell upon the golden golf cart, and for a fraction of a second, a flicker of something, was it pity, amusement, derision, danced in his eyes before being swallowed by a mask of pure, weaponized calm. The Cold War hadn't returned. Its ghost had merely arrived to silently judge this pathetic amateur production. Inside, the negotiating table was a vast expanse of polished mahogany, chosen to convey power and significance. It failed on both counts. The meeting commenced not with talk of arms control or economic sanctions, but with what insiders would later dub an extended, nonverbal contest of ergonomic dominance. Putin, a grand master of the subtle power move, seemed to grow fractionally taller in his seat, a micro-adjustment of his chair's hydraulics. Trump, detecting the shift, responded by puffing out his chest and attempting to broaden his shoulders, as if trying to physically inflate himself to a more commanding presence. For 10 agonizing minutes, the only sounds were the quiet hum of the climate control system and the faint squeak of expensive leather under stress. When dialogue finally began, it was not to heal divisions, but to carve new ones. Leaked accounts suggest Trump opened with a characteristically audacious proposal. Gesturing toward the stunning panorama of the Chugach Mountains, he announced his readiness to make a fantastic, truly beautiful deal. The offer. He would officially pardon Russia for, well, the specifics remained vague. In return, Russia would have to endorse his ongoing efforts to acquire Greenland, formally renounce communism, which an aide had assured him was not really a thing anymore, and, as a personal courtesy, support his initiative to rebrand the entire state of Alaska. His suggested new name? Trumpska. He reportedly leaned in, his eyes gleaming with the self-satisfied conviction of a man who believes he has just solved world peace. It's a terrific name, the best. It has a bit of you, a lot of me, Trumpska. The branding is just incredible. We'll build a magnificent ice hotel. The best ice. You know, a lot of people say, "Sir, your knowledge of ice is second to none." And it's true. Across the table, Vladimir Putin remained a statue carved from Siberian granite, his expression an unreadable testament to a national history of enduring long, brutal winters and even longer, more brutal political speeches. He let the silence stretch, a weapon in itself, before speaking. His voice was soft, devoid of inflection, yet it carried the chilling weight of 1,000 unwritten ultimatums. "We will take it under advisement," he said, the words dripping with the sincerity of a wolf promising to take up veganism. His cold, pale eyes stayed locked on a point just over Trump's right ear, as if tracking the flight of a far more interesting insect. From that point, the negotiations didn't just go south, they plummeted off a cliff, burst into flames on impact, and landed in a landfill that was already on fire. Putin, according to sources, calmly produced a small, high-tech laser distance measurer from his coat pocket. He clicked it on, aimed a tiny red dot at Trump's forehead, then at his own, and silently noted the difference in elevation on a small, leather-bound notepad. He underlined the final calculation 3 times, circled it, and put the notepad away. The gesture was simultaneously absurd and utterly crushing. Trump, visibly rattled by the experience of being literally measured by a geopolitical rival, improvised by launching into a nearly 20-minute tirade about his own extraordinary physical condition, his remarkable bone density, and a round of golf he'd played around 2016 that was, as he put it, a perfect game, probably better than perfect, which is possible when you have my talent. He proceeded to narrate in painstaking detail every drive, every chip, the precise wind conditions, the brand of golf ball he used, and how his playing partners were moved to tears by the sheer spectacle of his athletic genius. Putin's countermove was to take out a second, even smaller notepad and begin sketching. The drawing, when later examined by intelligence services who obtained a blurry photograph, was initially believed to be either the schematic for a new submarine or a particularly complex game of tic-tac-toe he was playing against his own psyche. The message, however, was unambiguous. His mind had already boarded a plane back to Moscow, while his body remained as a polite, silent hostage. At one juncture, according to an aide who spoke on the condition of extreme anonymity, Trump rose and strode to the window, sweeping his arm across the vista of the Alaskan wilderness. "Look at all this," he declared. "It could be for us. Both of us. Imagine it. Trump-Putin luxury glacial resorts. The most beautiful, most luxurious resorts in history. We could carve a golf course right into that glacier over there." Putin's only reaction was to make another notation in his book. Insiders speculate it was the current market price of gold, or perhaps just a reminder to buy more caviar. The summit collapsed. It wasn't a graceful failure, it was a train wreck in a fireworks factory. The BBC's headline captured it best: "Glacial diplomacy ends in acrimonious thaw." Al Jazeera was more poetic: "Two suns fail to rise over the Alaskan ice." Fox News declared, "President shows unprecedented strength in Anchorage," while MSNBC ran with, "Summit failure raises fears of a new Cold War." CNN, hedging its bets, just showed live footage of a snowplow clearing the convention center parking lot with the chyron "Tensions remain." No deal was signed, no treaty was forged, no joint statement was issued. The only point of agreement was that the coffee served was tepid, and even this was later contested. Trump's team insisted the coffee was absolutely perfect, the best temperature, truly incredible, while Russian officials flatly stated that no coffee was served at all, only tea, which had been sublime. Trump departed in his gilded chariot, loudly complaining to his staff that the room's lighting was a disaster and had been clearly set up by the fake news to make him look insufficiently presidential. He spent the flight home dictating a barrage of tweets that his own press secretary would later classify as aspirational history. Putin left just as he had come, silently, punctually, and with the quiet satisfaction of a man who had achieved precisely what he intended, which was a spectacular display of nothing, framed as a strategic victory that only he could comprehend. And what of the world? What of the global citizenry, observing this pageant of dysfunction with the morbid curiosity usually reserved for watching a car alarm that won't turn off? We did what we always do. We turned to the one oracle that holds the unfiltered, chaotic soul of modern humanity, the Google search bar. On a news program later that evening, a weary-looking political analyst stood before a massive screen displaying the top trending search queries related to the summit. His face held the expression of a man who had stared into the abyss and seen that it was filled with memes. Was the number one search nuclear proliferation, Arctic drilling rights, the future of NATO, the stability of the global order? Of course not. We live in an age where the average attention span is shorter than a TikTok video, and our collective priorities are dictated by algorithms designed to sell us sneakers. The number one trending search was Putin shirtless. Number 2, Donald Trump height. Number 3, is Trumpska a real place? This was followed by cost of gold golf cart. How much does Putin weigh? And for reasons that remain unclear, do polar bears live in cities? The last query was likely prompted by Trump's confident assertion that he had seen magnificent polar bears, the strongest bears, from his golf cart, a claim that zoologists immediately refuted by pointing out that while polar bears are in Alaska, they are hundreds of miles north of Anchorage, a fact the former president dismissed as a biased attack from the bear community. We, the people, were not grappling with the nuances of foreign policy. We were crowdsourcing their vital statistics. We were fact-checking their egos. Geopolitics had been reduced to post-game analysis for a particularly bad sporting event. The Internet, in its infinite and terrible wisdom, had processed the entire pathetic affair and transformed it into a global meme in less than a minute. Within hours, social media platforms were saturated with content that would give a traditional diplomat an aneurysm. There were videos of people dressing their house pets in tiny suits and making them stare each other down across a dollhouse table. There were deepfakes of Trump and Putin as contestants on a reality dating show, competing for the final rose. The hashtag #Alaskan Face-Off was trending globally, just ahead of Trumpska no, Heightgate, and golf cart diplomacy. One particularly viral video featured footage of the two leaders' arrivals overdubbed with a pitch-perfect David Attenborough impersonation. Here we observe the North American Trump, displaying its brightly colored plumage to assert territorial dominance. The smaller, more cunning Siberian Putin, however, is not intimidated by this garish display, knowing that in this harsh environment, efficiency, not flash, ensures survival. It garnered over 15 million views in under 8 hours. It was a perfect distillation of our modern political absurdity. Two of the most powerful men on earth traveled to the edge of the known world, surrounded by the raw, majestic power of nature. Glaciers that have existed for eons, mountains that have witnessed the rise and fall of empires, only to engage in a dispute that would be considered immature in a preschool sandbox. They postured, they blustered, they measured. They converted a discussion about the fate of humanity into a testosterone-fueled contest where the only thing missing was an actual tape measure. And in the end, the result was a perfect, magnificent void. Zero. Nothing. Unless you count the unexpected windfall for the Anchorage Tourism Board, which now offers guided tours of the conference room where history was so spectacularly not made. The tour concludes in the gift shop, which sells "I Survived the Trumpska Summit" coffee mugs and snow globes containing tiny gold-painted golf carts. The world didn't hold its breath. It held its phone, waiting to find the most shareable moment. And that, perhaps, is the true lesson of the great Alaskan Staredown. The crisis isn't the failure of diplomacy. It's that we have reached a point where the performance of power has become far more compelling, more hideously entertaining than its responsible exercise. We are now merely the audience for our own decline, live streaming the apocalypse with a steady stream of ironic hashtags. They came, they saw, they bickered like spoiled heirs fighting over the inheritance. They left behind nothing but a few confused locals, a hefty hotel bill, and an internet search history that future digital archaeologists will study as a symptom of a civilization that had finally lost its mind. The only thing that got colder than the Alaskan tundra that day was the war. The endless war that never really went away, but simply changed its wardrobe, adopted a new online persona, and learned how to go viral. Because in this century, we no longer resolve our conflicts. We curate them. We meme them. We turn them into content for the endless scroll. The summit concluded not with a treaty, not with a resolution, but with a push notification. And somewhere in the vast, frozen landscape, a glacier calved another iceberg into the sea, continuing its ancient, inexorable journey, utterly indifferent to the human comedy that had just played out upon its stage. Nature, at least, knew how to keep its composure.